did you know there are 4 kinds of being alone? We have a guide.
As a human being who happens to be an expert on loneliness, I was struggling myself. How am I feeling?
And blubbery animals make love to each other. But at least it's good for a trip outside.
And they are just loud.
Also, we made a new rule. I have to say one good thing to start the show. So, this is what I did instead of commuting. Theme music today by Becca.
It's okay to go nowhere without things to do, but that's hard for a person like me. How I long to go outside and see all our friends, though it's nice to be stuck here with you.
Why the run on toilet paper? The answer is anxiety.
Let's get smarter. We're about to get a roadmap to being alone. Dr. Hakan Özellik is a professor of management at Sac State University.
And I'm a behavioral scientist, so I'm more on the behavioral side of management. My research expertise is on emotions.
He's actually a loneliness expert. He's spent 12 years with his colleagues studying loneliness in the workplace. Being smarter about being alone is a good thing right now. If you can identify what kind of alone you're feeling, that gives you a big leg up.
I fully agree.
Before all this, we were already in a loneliness epidemic, according to him and plenty of other researchers.
About 55 to 60% of people in North American society feel lonely. Like they don't have a friend. They've got one or less friends in their lives, which is very concerning.
So now we're all thrust into actual isolation where we're not allowed to be close to one another, and that's only going to pour gasoline on that problem.
Exactly, because as much as it's not as painful when it's very short period, isolation, if it's prolonged, it is also a very disturbing circumstance to be in.
Did you catch what he said? Not loneliness. He said isolation, because isolation and loneliness are actually 2 different things.
It might be a lot harder to overcome our loneliness than overcoming our isolation. As a human being who happens to be an expert on loneliness, I was struggling myself in the first, few days of this period. How am I feeling? Like, where are we heading as a society? And first I started thinking of as a problem of loneliness, and I realized it's not. So it's isolation. It's becoming a new social reality. So that made me think, then let's get deeper into this and create a little model, like a mental map.
This is his mental map, SILO. And yes, it's an acronym.
Solitude, isolation, loneliness, and ostracism. So there are different forms of social aloneness.
This is not some kind of miracle cure, but you can use this to help deal with whatever you're feeling right now, simply by identifying it. If you feel alone, decide which of these 4 kinds of alone you really feel.
Solitude is a pleasant, alone state to be in. You are just reading your book, you are having a cup of coffee and thinking about things, writing your diary. So we enjoy solitude moments.
So solitude is the positive state of being alone. Isolation is neutral. It's also physical. Isolation is what social distancing requires out of all of us. Loneliness is a negative emotion, though, feeling alone and down about it. And you can feel lonely even in a crowd.
The problem with loneliness is that if it's prolonged, it starts creating some psychological cycles that are hard to break. Ostracism is a reality, it's a social reality. You might be a great person, but if a group of people decide to, exclude you and decide that, you are not a part of them, then you are ostracized, which is another very painful, state to be in.
The idea is, if you're on the negative end of this chart, you can try to work your way up to neutral or positive territory.
To break the silo, these are separate psychological states, and define your state and create a desirable state, because we can manage our moods, we can manage our emotions. That's one of our, emotional intelligence system. So right now we just need to spend extra effort to do that.
I think it's important to acknowledge, though, it's okay to feel down at various points throughout this, right? There will be loneliness for almost everyone.
Definitely. And I would say, if you feel normal right now, like nothing has changed, that to me is a symptom of that something has been wrong for some time. It's okay to experience negative emotions. It's part of our lives. It's a great way to mature and learn and reflect and redefine. So maybe this is right now an opportunity for us as humankind to go through that, because that will probably make us appreciate the value of social connections, relationships, and interactions that we have taken for granted for too long.
If you look at the silo and decide you're feeling lonely or even ostracized, Hakan says don't let it fester. He says use active coping. That means interact with others. If there's confusion, clarify that immediately. And he also suggests rituals. So that weekly happy hour. And always keep in mind, this isn't normal.
And I think that's the key right now. This is not a normal state of affairs. I mean, people in crisis times actually bond more strongly than regular times because they have a common challenge. We should always keep in the back of our minds. If you got this trivial, argument with your coworker or with your friend, with your family member, in the midst of all this, step back. The world is in a crisis period right now.
What are the signs that I really need to look for that are like, this is more than just loneliness at this moment?
I mean, a psychiatrist would provide more scientific insights about it, but based on my intuitions and tying that to loneliness, one side might be there is no way out. It's actually a lot more desirable to be lonely than depressed, because depressed people, they don't care the less. They are fully withdrawn. They don't seek out relationships. They decide to little depressed, like suppress themselves.
Look, depression just happens, and these are harder times than most. So if that sounded like you, please jot this number down. We keep showing it because sometimes you just need a hand to get out of the rut. Hakan did give us one more thing that can help besides just interacting with more people. He says you can think of silo and try to make time for the S. Solitude.
And start reading a book. Force yourself to get into that, fiction world for an hour. Or just sit and think. And I think that really helps. I think thinking is something we need, self-reflection, because we had very little time to self-reflect in modern life. We are all busy. So now is the time for some self-reflection. What does it all mean? And what do I learn from this as a human being? So we shouldn't be afraid of asking those questions. They might help us.
The homework for everybody watching this is to think of what solitude looks like in your mind and carve out a little time regularly to do it, whether that's curling up with a book for an hour or listening to some new music or whatever it is.
We should find ways to create those moments where we enjoy, and that doesn't mean that we ignore what's happening in social world, in external world, but we can't just afford being depressed or anxious or fearful 24 hours a day.
In a word, he's saying, try for balance. If you want to dive deeper into the study of isolation, Dr. Hakan Uzalik and the Sac State College of Business Administration have a brand new YouTube series all about loneliness and how organizations can deal with it during this pandemic. We've got a link for you in the blurb on this video. Really appreciate it, Hakan. Very nice to meet you, and hopefully we'll talk again soon. And good luck with your show.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, let's be in touch.
And we're always looking to get smarter, so send us your good questions in the comments or my email. We'll work on answers. Oh, if you're new to the show, we are sweatpants friendly around here. Let's get out with my colleague John, who's got a fun new special you can watch right now on YouTube all about the animals of California. John, why don't you just introduce yourself? I know who you are, but say hi.
Hey, John Bartell here. We have a show called Bartell's Backroads, where we go all over California, visit people, places, and things.
Well, the nice thing about these videos is they provide a really nice escape outside.
I like to call it virtual tourism, is what it is. So you get to, you can go on there and just go wherever you want in California.
So without further ado, why don't you walk me through a little bit of what we'll get in this special?
You can check out the latest Bartell's Backroads special. It's called Animal Style. And we've got about 11 or 12 different animals that we feature in this. And I'm going to start off with banana slugs. I really enjoy banana slugs. and we went down to Henry Cowell State Park and got a little lesson on banana slugs. They are fascinating animals. Our park ranger is a very knowledgeable guy, giving us many, many different facts. He's like a human encyclopedia about these banana slugs. There is a rumor that they are poisonous. I wouldn't go around and lick them or anything like that. I'd definitely wash my hands if you're gonna go pick them up. But these guys are not harmless, and they actually eat a lot of dead things out of the wilderness. I say we head over to Sierra County. We're gonna go take a look at the Yak Ranch. So Brandon, not all of these animals are wild. Some of these animals that I've encountered, they are, they are livestock or pets. But the Yak Ranch, it's really unique. I believe this is one of just 3 yak ranches in California here. It started out as a joke. They both just decided like, hey, what would be fun is to get some yaks because Sierra County, it's a very cold place in the winter. It's high Sierra. So they decided, let's get 1 yak. 1 yak turned into, I think, 30 some yaks, along with baby yaks.
Can I ask a really fundamental question? It's just, what do you do with a yak crop?
Well, so they do 2 things. These guys, they actually get the fur. When they shed, they brush the yaks and they turn it into yarn. They also milk the yaks, and then they also eat it for their meat. And the yak meat they gave me some. It's a very unique kind of meat. Cooking it, you don't want to overcook it. It's always going to have this red tint, and it's good. Tastes good. They're making some lotions. They're making some soaps out of the yak milk.
Those 2 things are not food, John.
Those are not. But you can use the milk to make those, and it's supposedly good for you. We're gonna head over. We're gonna head over to the coast, and we're gonna go check out the elephant seals. Oh, hold on.
Oh, I love elephant seals.
Now we're gonna head over to the Año Nuevo State Park. It is, when we went, it just so happened to be the end of mating season. And if you can make it over there, like anytime it's usually February is when it's at their peak breeding season. And the beaches are just lined with these elephant seals. And it's just a fascinating thing to see.
Yeah, I've been by elephant seals, not necessarily during mating season, but it almost feels like you're just near like a whole herd of aliens or something.
Absolutely, yeah, and they are just loud, and they're very loud. And you know what's unique about going to Año Nuevo State Park is you can, when you go on these tours with the state park, they get you really close to these animals, and it's just really a fantastic experience.
So what are you doing to sort of like keep in check and keep in touch with the outdoors right now? Like how are you getting through all this?
Really, right now I've got a planner that I am just planning on where I'm going to go next, and that's what I'm doing, and I think that's what everyone should be doing. Figure out when this is over, where am I going to go?
Bartell's Backroads Animal Style special is streaming now on YouTube. We've got a link down in the blurb.
Hey, it's come to this. Daughter's cutting haircut, listening to Marshall Tucker on a nice day.
That's it for episode 3 of Distant Socially. We'll be off next week for my furlough, but we'll be back. However, all of this has changed your life. I hope you can find time to focus on the good things. And if you enjoyed that opening music as much as I did, you will want to stick with us for the whole thing.
It's okay to go nowhere without things to do, but that's hard for us.